Hey guys, welcome back. So this is going to be the workshop part number 4 on Kubernetes series. I hope you guys are watching the entire series. Now, in this video, I want to quickly touch base on Docker networking and just the networking basics and the bridge networking and the overlay networking. I'm not going to go deep into this Docker part because that is not our main focus. Our main focus is on Kubernetes, but in order to make sure that you know Kubernetes, we have to have a basic understanding of all the components of Docker. So that is what we've been seeing for the last 3 videos. Now this is our 4th video, 4th workshop 4. Now in this, I'm going to launch as usual. I'm using AWS to launch the instances. So I'm clicking on sign into the console. So I'm going to launch 2 instances now. So one is, okay, let me click on EC2. So launch instance. So I'm going to make it 2 instances here. And I'm going to give something like Docker networking. Okay. And I'm going to choose Amazon Linux 2 AMI. And instance type is t2.micro. Key pair, proceed without a key pair. And network settings, I just want to make sure that it's in default VPC, no preference required. And auto assign public, yeah. Select existing security group. I'm using another security group called my website SG. If you want to see what is this security group, what are the rules I have allowed, you can very well right click on EC2, open in a new tab. And on the left side there is something called security groups. Click on the security groups, and the security group which I have chosen was my website-sg. So if you see this one, my website-sg, yeah, so this is the one, my website-sg. Yeah, if you click on this, so you can see that I'm allowing these many rules. So make sure that you are also allowing these many rules, only then this workshop will work. So you have to allow the all traffic and all TCP and also the SSH TCP 22. Okay, cool. Closing this and configure storage. Well, all done. Click on launch instance. Now our instances will be launched. Now if you click on launch log, it says succeeded, which is good. Click on view all instances. So your 2 instances are in pending status. So I'm going to change the tag for this instance. I'm going to give this as Docker networking 1 machine, and this is Docker networking 2 machine. Okay, so let's wait for a minute, guys. Okay, now if you see the instances are in running status. So now I'm going to connect to the Docker networking 1 machine here. So click on this and then click on connect. Now click on connect again. So it will open up the browser SSH connection. So I'm not using putty or anything. So I just clicked on the connect button and it's getting connected. Now here, first thing what you have to do is you have to update the repo. So sudo space yum space update -y. So which will be done. Now the next one is you have to install the Docker because for the Amazon Linux version 2, the Docker would not be coming up in the AMI as default. So you have to execute the Docker installation command. So let's see. Okay, before we install the Docker, just see whether Docker is present or not. Okay, so how do you check that? Okay, if you just type Docker, see it just says Docker command not found, which means that Docker is not there. Yeah, we have seen these things in the previous videos. That's fine. Now Docker, so if you see this Docker hyphen v, again it says Docker command not found. So I'm going to install sudo yum install docker -y. So the Docker would be installed. Great. Now what's next? So next is if you type Docker, yeah, see you're getting all the commands, whatever it is getting listed, it is coming up, which is good. Now the first command is you have to check whether Docker is running or not. So systemctl status Docker, say it's not running. So in order to run it, if you type systemctl start Docker, It'll give a message like, boss, you don't have permission kind of thing. It will say fail to start. So what I do is sudo systemctl start docker. Yeah, now if you type systemctl status docker, so it will tell you that it is actively running. Okay, now if you type docker network ls, this is the first command which I'm trying to introduce to understand what is docker networking means. But again, you are getting a permission error because you have logged in as an ec2-user. We have seen these things multiple times in the previous workshop, but again, you will not get this error if you go to sudo su. You will be in the root user. Okay, earlier you were in the ec2-user, but after you type the command sudo and switch user, so you are in the root account. Now if you type docker space network space ls, so you are getting some entries which we will talk about it. But if you exit out, again you are back into the ec2-user, which you guys know this. Now how can you execute this command without throwing this error? So for that, what you need to do is you need to add the sudo user mod -a-G docker ec2-user. So if you run this, what happens is it's just doing the modification of the user called ec2-user, and it's trying to add the ec2-user into the docker group. Now in order to make sure that it works, you have to exit out, come out of it, and then reconnect again. Now if you type docker network ls, see, now it's working. How? Why? Because you have added the user ec2-user into that particular docker group. So that's why you're able to execute it without even switching to the root account. Okay, perfect. That's fine. Now, what is this docker command? Docker network ls, what exactly it says? So this is the main command where you can configure and manage your docker networking. Okay, so docker network ls, what exactly? Okay, and also I want to tell you one more thing. If you type docker space network alone, it will tell you that, see, you can create a new you can create a network, you can disconnect a network, you can connect a network to with a particular container, and you can do many other things. Yeah, so with the docker network command, you can you can list the existing networks, you can inspect the networks, and you can remove the networks. Okay, it also allows you to connect and disconnect containers from the network. So you can do many things when you type docker space network, and then with the specific commands, whatever you want to perform it. Okay, this we have seen. Now the next thing is docker space network space ls. So what is this docker space network space ls? So what happens is, as you have seen, we have installed this docker. After the installation of the docker, we did not run any container at all. If you type docker space ps, no. If you type docker ps-a, no. If you type docker space images, no, nothing is there. At any moment in a particular machine, as soon as you install the docker, there are three networks would be coming up. One is a bridge network, and the other one is a host network, and the other one is a NAN network. So each network is mapped to a particular driver. Now in this case, if you see, there is something called bridge network, and the bridge network is connected to the bridge driver. Don't get confused with the names. Okay, so bridge network is connected to the bridge driver, host network is connected to the host driver, NAN network is connected to the null driver. Okay, now in this video, we will talk about the bridge network and also the overlay network, which we'll talk about it later. Okay. Now let's talk about the bridge network. Now, if you want to see the configuration details of the bridge, okay, what will you do? For example, in Windows, in Windows machine, if you want to see the network adapter configuration, what will you do? You just type network here, and then you'll get something called view network connections. Click on view network connections, and you will see something like Wi-Fi adapter. Right click on it, and then you can click on properties. So you will see lot of details like what is the IP, and if you go for properties, these many things you can see here in Windows. So likewise, If you want to see a specific configuration of a network, then first thing you type docker network -ls. It will list out the number of networks for this Docker machine. Now in this Docker network, I'm going to look for something called bridge network. So what will you do? Docker space network space inspect. Okay, and then you just add this bridge name here. So now if you hit enter, now see you're getting these many details. Now if you see what are these many details, you can open up a notepad and you can check this out. If you open up a notepad, see this, you're getting the name. It says it's a bridge network, and this is the unique ID, and when was it created. Okay, so this was created when we installed the Docker. And what is the scope? Scope means it is local. Local means what it says is this network, whatever containers you're creating in this bridge network, it will be communicated only with this EC2 machine, only with this EC2 machine. It will not be able to communicate outside of the EC2 machine. That we call it as a scope. That we call it as a scope is local. Okay. So, and the driver, it's used the bridge. And what is the subnet it's using? It's allocated these many subnets, 170, these many IPs /16. Okay, cool. Now let's see the next one. So what is the next one? So now we saw the command called inspect network. Yeah. Now the next thing is I want to show you one more thing here. So let's see Docker. If you type docker info, so this is also one of the easy commands which you need to remember. Copy. I'm sorry. Docker info, right click, copy. Yeah, just delete this. So now if you see this docker info command, what exactly this docker info command does is it will tell you how many number of containers are running, paused and stopped, and how many images are there, and what is the server version, and what is the storage driver, and what is the file system, and what is the logging driver, what is the C group driver, and what is the network plugins. Now this particular Docker server version will support these many network. One is the bridge, host, IP VLAN, MAC VLAN, null, and overlay. You can ask me, Simi, what all these things? These things we will talk about it later, but for now I'm just focusing on bridge, and in next couple of minutes I'll talk about overlay as well. Yeah, so this also the docker info command will also tell you what all the network drivers it's supporting, the current Docker version. Yeah, so that is also very, very important. Now the next thing is I want to talk about the bridge networking. So what is this bridge? So if you can see, after every Docker installation you will get these many networks are default. You will get bridge, host, and none. These three things are common. Yeah, so as I've said, the bridge network is associated with the bridge driver, host network is associated with the host driver, and none network is associated with the null driver. Okay, now I want to tell you something about a command called brctl. So what exactly this command does? Okay, so this will tell you, this we call it as a bridge controller. You can say like a bridge controller command. So if I type, let me show you something here. So here we go. So if you type brctl show, just understand this, how this Docker works. There is a host machine. When I say host machine here in my AWS EC2 instance, this is my host machine, right? I've connected with the Docker networking one. This is my host machine. So inside this host machine, so if you open here, this is my host machine. So inside the host machine, what we did, we installed Docker installed. Okay. Now how are you communicating from this machine to the Docker instance or Docker containers? Obviously, when you install Docker install, you will launch Docker containers, you will launch Docker images, which we have seen in the last 2 videos or 3 videos, right? So how will you launch a connection from the EC2 instance to the Docker containers? So that is where we are introducing something called bridge. bridge connection. Now when I say bridge, what happens is all networks created with the bridge driver are based on something called Linux bridge. I call it as a Linux bridge, or you can call it as a virtual switch. Remember that. So can I see this Linux bridge, Samir? Yes, you can see this Linux bridge here. Now here, if you see, this is we call it as a bridge name. See, Docker 0 is coming up here. So using this Docker 0, this is a bridge. This is a bridge acting between the instance, the host machine, and the containers. If the Docker 0 is not there, it will not work. When the Docker 0 will come, the bridge will come. We call it as a virtual switch. This will default, but it will come as soon as you install the Docker. Remember that. Okay. Now, is there any instances, containers running? No, nothing is running. Okay. Is there any containers in stopped state? Nothing is there. Okay. Now, if I want to see the bridge status, brctl show. So the Docker 0, the bridge is there active, but there is nothing called interfaces is connected. So I want you to closely look into this. Okay. Right now the interfaces is nothing. Okay. There is no entry in that column. Okay. And also if you type IP space A, just type IP space A, it will tell you the IP address of this particular machine. If you see this is a private IP address 172.31.84.36, which is the same thing. And this is a local host loopback address, and this is the bridge Docker 0, where we've seen this Docker 0. This is the same thing. Docker 0 is there. Okay. Now I'm going to launch a container, then I'll show you what is it. Okay. So brctl show. Remember this? We have a bridge and there is no interfaces is connected. Okay. Now I'm going to run a command, docker space run space -dt Ubuntu, and then sleep infinity. Okay. Now if you run this, it will launch a container in the background mode. -d is a background mode, and if you type docker ps, see a container, it's running. Now if you type brctl show, just understand this difference between these things and these things. Now if you see the Linux bridge, the Docker 0, the bridge virtual switch bridge is having an interface called this one. What is this? VETH. If you type IP space A, see, you are getting one more network called VETH. It's a virtual network, one more thing. And what is this? This is because you have launched a container, and that is what your interface is coming up. Okay, I hope you are getting the picture. Now say for example, let's see, docker run -dt Ubuntu again. Okay, sleep, or maybe I'll just give a name like this, docker run -dt -name Samir Ubuntu something, and then Ubuntu, then sleep, then infinity, enter. So docker ps. So you're getting two containers. One container. One is sleep infinity. Okay, docker ps -a. Okay, so you're getting these things. So which is already exit out. So we need to see why the container which I'm running is getting exit out. Just give me a minute. So Samir Ubuntu sleep. Okay, there is a wrong. See this? Infinity command is wrong. So what I'll do here is docker up arrow. Okay, just type in. Okay, I'll just change the name here. Ubuntu sleep infinity. Now it should work. Okay, now there are two containers running. Now if you see brctl show, now see there are two interfaces are running, which means two containers are running, having the interface getting created. Now if you type IP space A, you get two interfaces are also there. So this is what I want to show you about this. Now what I want you to do is just for the easy things, I'm gonna stop one container called the first one 9b7. Okay, 9b7. Okay, and I've stopped it. Once you stopped it, you can see what is going to happen with the bridge controller command. There will be only one interface. So if you type brctl space show, see, again we're back to the only one interface. If you type ip space a, you get only one interface is connected. Okay, which is good. Now we launched a container is already running, docker ps. This is the first container which we ran, which is good. Now the next thing is I'm sorry, then the next thing is docker network ls. Now if you type docker network inspect bridge, if you see this in this, I'm just copying this, copy, and go to the notepad here, control V. Now here if you see this docker network inspect bridge, it will tell you it's a bridge network, yes, fine, and the scope is local, that's fine, and this is the IP, subnet IP, that's fine. But if you see, there is something called new thing has been added, containers. So on this bridge network there is a container running. See, you're getting a container running with this container name called interesting underscore eline. Now if you see here docker ps, it will have the same name. See this interesting underscore eline, that container is running, and this is the id, and this is the mac address, and this is the ip address. Okay, so say for example, if you're launching another container, okay, just like this, how I did, docker run -2 ubuntu sleep infinity. Okay, you're getting an error because there is already a container called Zulfi Ubuntu is already in stopped state. So what I'll do here is I'll start this container, guys. So 9b7. Now if you start the container docker ps, okay, now Zulfi Ubuntu has come up. See, now it has come up. Now if you type docker network ls, and then if you type docker network inspect, and then if you type bridge, you will see two containers are running. See, earlier it was only one here, but now if you see, there are two containers are running. One is interesting eline and another one is Zulfi Ubuntu, which is having this IP 0.2 and 0.3. So likewise you can check this as well. But for now I'm going to stop the another container, docker stop 9b7. So docker is stopped, I mean the container is stopped. Now what we're going to do is we're going to test the network connectivity, guys. Okay, so what even been testing the network connectivity. So here if you see docker ps, okay, cool, and I'm in my host name, so I'm in my EC2 machine. I did not log into the container yet. Now I want to ping the container IP. Okay, I want to ping the container IP. Now how will you see? Okay, if anybody asks you, hey Samir, what is the container IP, what will you do is, the best way is you have to see docker ps first. Okay, this is one container is running interesting eline, and docker network inspect and then bridge. If you type it, so you will get the container name and the container IP. This is a container IP 172.17.0.2. See, IPv4 address. This is the IP. Now what I'm going to do is ping space C5. C5 means after the 5 count of pinging, it will automatically exit out. Okay, so 172.17.0.2. Now see, you're getting a connectivity from your host machine to the container IP. Okay, now now this network connectivity is working fine. You're getting a reply that docker host, the EC2 host can ping the container over the bridge network. Okay, but one more thing, what we can do is we can try to log into this container. From that container we will try to connect to the internet, whether we are able to ping any websites or not. Yeah, so for that what we're going to do is we're going to log into the container first. So that to log into the container, you have to docker space, you have seen this command already, docker space exit space interactive IT, and this is the container ID. Okay, so 99 something, so 995, and then you can just type only first 3 or 4 digit numbers, that will work. Yeah, and then bin/bash. So you are, see, your terminal ps prompt is changed. So the prompt is changed, you are inside the container. Okay, now default inside the container, you will not get the ping utilities or something. If you type ping space www.google.com, see, it will say that ping command is not found. So for that, what you have to do is apt update. First you update the repos. Okay, after that, just install this apt get install -y ip utils -ping. If you enter that, now if you type ping space www.google.com, you're inside the container. Now from the container, you are able to connect to the internet. You are able to try pinging the github.com or google.com or anything. Now I'll just control C and exit out. You are back to the Docker host machine. Okay, so this is the easy way of explaining the Docker bridge networking, guys. So now what I'll do here is I will stop the container 9957, enter. So once you stop the container, that's it, you're done. So this particular 10 minutes of video explains that the new container can ping the internet, and therefore it has a valid and working network configurations. Yeah, so now if you type docker ps, see, no active containers are running. Docker ps -a, there is something called this container which is exit out a few minutes back, 3 minutes back, on 7 minutes ago or 10 seconds ago. This is the one which we were working on. Yeah, great. Now what is next, Samir? So next is, let's talk about the overlay networking. Yeah, so that is what but before overlay networking, I just want to talk about configuring the NAT, or maybe we can call it as a PAT or something. Okay, so in this video, in this exercise, we will show how to start a new Nginx container and map the Docker host port to a container port. Okay, how do you form a communication, how do you form a connection from the Docker host? When I say Docker host, I'm talking about the EC2 machine to a container. Okay, so that means whoever is trying to hit the traffic on the Docker host on a particular port, that should be mapped to a container port. So that is what we're gonna do it. So for that, let's start. So I'm gonna docker, then run -name. I'm gonna give the name called web1 and -d -p is for it should run at the background and it should not exit out, and -p is for port mapping. So -p, and this is the 8080:80. So what is this 8080:80? Okay, so this is how it should be: Docker host port container port. So this is how it should be. So 8080 is the Docker host port, which is your EC2 machine port, and after that, the second section is a container port, and then I'm just mentioning the image name, Nginx. Now Nginx is getting downloaded. Now what will you do is docker ps. So now see, container ID, this is the image, and then it's up for 2 seconds. And what is the port? Anybody who can access from any IP onto this machine on 8080 port will be route the traffic to the 80 port of the container. And this is IPv4 and this is the IPv6, and this is the name of the container. So that is what we are doing. Now in order to verify this, what you can do is curl space localhost :8080. So if you type this one, okay, if you type enter, see, you're getting welcome to Nginx blah 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 blah. So if you type curl http://127.0.0.1:8080, you'll get the same thing, same page. So localhost and 127.0.0.1 is same. Okay, but if you want to see the public IP of this, curl ifconfig.me, you're getting the public IP here. Copy this and then you open a new browser. So you just type http:// and then if you type 8080, so you should get the same web page, which means it's going and hitting the 8080 port, and then it's going to this container. It's going to the container which is running now. Okay, now if you type docker stop 128, okay, docker stop, if you type docker ps nothing is running. If you refresh it, see, it keeps spinning, which means it's going and hitting the 8080 port, and from the 8080 port of the EC2 machine, it's trying to map it to the 80 port of the instance, but the instance itself not running. So that's why you're getting the site cannot be reached. So what I'll do here is I'm going to start the container, docker start 128. Now if you type docker ps, see, the container started running. Now if you refresh it, it should work. See, welcome to Nginx, it's working. So this way of doing, we call it as a port mapping. Yeah, this we call it as a port address translation. So this is also very, very important for the basics of Kubernetes. Yeah. And now we're going to launch something, and now we are getting into something called overlay networking. So what is overlay networking? Let's do this. If you remember, we have launched 2 instances in the beginning of the video. So this is Docker networking 2, and I'm going to connect to this machine. Click on connect. So I'm moving this to this one. So this is my first machine and this is my second machine. Okay. Now in the second machine, it is brand new. We never installed any Docker. So I just want to update the repos. So let it get updated. Yeah. Now if you type brctl show, see, it's not showing anything. It's not showing something on Docker 0, which I was talking about. The Docker 0 means it's a Linux bridge. As soon as you install Docker, you will get that bridge automatically get created. Yeah, so Docker is not there. So what I'll do, sudo yum install docker-y. So when you do this, your Docker will get installed. Great. So now, just for the easy thing, I'm switching into the sudo user. I'm in the root account, so systemctl status docker. It's not running, so I'm running it. Systemctl start docker. So let it run. Now, if you type systemctl status docker again, yeah, it is running, which is good. Now, if you type docker network space ls, okay, you're getting this. And if you type brctl show, you're getting this bridge also, and there is no network interface created because there is no containers are running. Okay, cool. Now what's the next thing? So next thing is I want to we have seen this in the previous video when we are talking, when we try to deploy some application using the Docker Swarm. We're gonna do the same sort of setup here. So first thing is I'm coming to the first machine, Docker networking 1 machine. Now I'm gonna run this command docker space swarm space init, and then hyphen advertise hyphen addr. Then I'm gonna $, then open parenthesis host name hyphen I, and then enter. Now this will give like swarm has been initialized and current node is now a manager. Okay, now I want to add this command, copy into my second machine, right click and then paste as plain text. Now this node joined the swarm as a worker. Now go back to the first and then docker node ls. You will get 2 node. One is the current one, which is 36, which is this one which you have a star symbol and which is ready active, and this is a leader means this is a manager. The other one is 116, which is nothing but the same thing, 116, and this is a worker node. Okay, so we have formed the swarm for this. Now the next thing is go to the first terminal, and here if you type docker network ls, see, we had only 3 networks. If you remember, one was bridge, host and none. But after you initialize the swarm, you are getting docker underscore gw bridge and also ingress. So these are all part of your Docker Swarm, which you don't need to worry about it. Yeah. Now what we're gonna do here is we are going to create a Docker network. Okay. So for that we have a command called docker network. If you type docker network, it will tell you what are all the commands you can add after the network. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add something called create command. So docker network, yeah, create. Now I want to make sure that this network, the one which we are creating, it should be running always. So I'm using the -d command, and then I'm gonna mention what is the network type you want to create. I want to create a network type as an overlay network type. After that, I want to give a name for the network. So I am giving something like Samir overnet, something like this. Okay, now if you type docker network ls, you will get a new network called Samir overnet, and the driver is overlay, and this is a swarm scope. Perfect. Now the next thing is, I'm going back to the next instance, the worker node. If you type docker network ls, you will not see this one. You will not see the Samir overnet overlay here unless when it is needed, and I will say when it is needed. Okay, but just follow along with me. Okay, for now it is not coming up right now. Okay, perfect. Now the next thing is, let's go back here and I want to inspect it. I want to see the configuration of the Samir overnet. So docker network inspect Samir overnet, enter. So now see, you're getting the configuration details of Samir overnet. So let's open a notepad. So here if you see Samir overnet, and this is created, and scope is swarm, driver is overlay, and this is the subnet range which has been defined by the Docker for this particular network. Yeah, which is good. Now I'm going to create a service. Yeah, make sure you are in first machine. Yeah, now Docker service create, and I'm gonna give a name called my service. Yeah, and then put a backslash so that I can come into the next line. Hyphen network. Now what is the network I have to launch? I am launching the service called my service under the network called Samir. I forgot the network, guys. So Control C, docker network ls. What is my network name? Samir overnet. So what I'll do, docker service create hyphen name my service hyphen network network. Then you can give Samir overnet, which is nothing but this is the name, Samir overnet. Then hyphen I want two replicas, so 2. Then Ubuntu is the image which I'm using, and sleep infinity is a command so that the container will be keep on running. Okay, now if you hit enter, just see 1 out of 2 tasks. Now in some time it will tell you that 2 out of 2 tasks has been completed. Okay, now if you want to see what all the services are running, docker space service space ls, see my service, the one which you gave right now, the name, it is there, and it is running 2/2, and Ubuntu latest image is running. So this is the service id, my service id. Okay, now if you want to specifically understand in whichever node it is running, what you can do is docker service ps my service. If you hit enter, it will tell you that one task is running on this machine and the other task is running on this machine. Here if you see 36, right? So here it is running, and 116 is nothing but the next one that is also running. If you type docker ps, you will see one instance is running. If you type docker ps here, see one instance is running here, my service. Okay, so this is how we create a service now. Yeah, now the next thing is, if you come here, earlier 2 minutes back I ran docker network ls in the second terminal, but now if you type docker network ls, it will tell that Samir overnet is there as well in the swarm, because this overnet, how it works is, whenever the connection is not needed in the worker node, you will not see this overlay network whatever you have created. And whenever a service has been created or some sort of activities you have launched, at that time only it will launch the connection and it will display in the worker node. Just remember that, guys. Yeah, so, and also what you can do is, here if you see in the second one, docker network ls, docker network inspect and Samir overnet, if you type it, so here also you can see that there is one container running and this is the IP. The same thing here also you can see here. Inspect Samir. See, here also is running. Yeah, so now what we will do here is, now we got to know that there are two replicas, 2 tasks are running, and or I can say two containers are running. So each containers are running in each of the Docker machine. Yeah, so I have one machine here and the other one is this one. Okay, perfect. Now on the second machine, just to make sure that you will not be able to run this command, because this is not a manager node or this is not a leader node, this is a worker node. Even you can't type docker service ls, no. Even if you type docker service, anything, I mean, you can't run anything, any of these commands like this. Okay, only you can execute these commands in the manager node, which is my first machine, where you have initialized the swarm. Yeah, now the next thing is I want to test the network. So let's see how I can test the network. Means, say for example, this is my machine 1. Okay, and here if you type docker, okay, network ls, you are getting some network ls here, docker network inspect, and then Samir over net. This is my overlay network. I'm just trying to find the configuration, clicking on it. Now if you open here, there is a container running. This is a container running, and this is the container name, my service something. Okay, let me copy this just for easy understanding. Okay, so right click and copy. Now if you open this, yeah, so this is my first machine. You can say like first or leader node. You can say like leader node. Okay, and this is my things. Okay, in the leader node, yeah, this is the leader node, and let me open another notepad. And this is the worker node. Okay, so in the worker node, if you open the worker node here, this is a worker node. So docker network ls, the docker network inspect Samir over net. Now here, this is the docker, okay, second worker node. So copy and then go here, go to the new one. Yeah, cool. Now what is okay, this is the leader node, right? Now in the leader node, there is one container already launched for this network, Samir overnet. Now for this container IP, this is the IP. Okay, so just for the easy understanding, I'm just putting it here. Okay, this is my leader container IP. Remember that. Okay, now the next one is, I'm going back here to the worker node, and worker node also there is a container running, which is nothing but this one. Okay, so control C, and this is my worker node container. This is my worker node container IP. Now what are we trying to achieve here is, let me open a notepad here. Okay, so what are we trying to achieve here? So we are trying to achieve here is manager node container is communicating with worker node container. We are trying to launch the communication. We are trying to see whether one host container is trying to communicate with next host container, and that is the whole purpose of this exercise, and that is what we call it as a overlay. When I say overlay, multiple hosts can be communicated using this overlay network, and this thing will not be able to happen, this cannot be happen in the bridge network. Yeah, so for that, what I'm going to do is, this is my manager IP, leader node IP, control C. Okay, and this is my worker node IP. Okay, now what I want you to do is, I want to try this, whether this is trying to communicate to this one or not, because these both are in different machine, right? So what we will do here is the first thing. Okay, first thing, I will log into the leader node. So where is my leader node? I will log into the leader node here. Then I will log into the container docker ps. So I already have this one is running, right? This is under my service, correct? So what I'll do here is docker exec -it, and then e6a, then I'll just type bin and then bash. Now you are in the container. Okay, now after you come into the container, if you remember, ping will not work because you have to install some utility. So for that, you just type apt get update, which will update it, and then apt-get install-y ip utils -ping. So if you hit enter that, now your ping utility will be, now if you type ping, it's working, right? Now if you type ping space www.google.com, yeah, it's working with the internet. But the real thing is, we have logged into this particular container, which is a leader node, which is this one, and we have to try pinging to this IP, which is in different machine. So what we will do, ping space, paste it. Now if you hit enter, see, now it's trying to communicate to that machine. Okay, so this is a demonstration which I wanted to show you guys. Okay, so I think you can try the same way here as well. Now here I'm going to the second machine. If you type docker ps, you're getting this docker exec -it. Then if you type d61, then if you type bin bash, so you are in the docker. You are in this container, which is nothing but you are in this second container. You are in this container. Now I'm trying to ping this IP, whether it works or not. Now if you go here, if you type ping space, enter, paste is plain text. Okay, ping command is not found. So for that, what you have to do, apt get update -y. So let it update. Then you have to install apt get install -y ip utils -ping. Yeah, now if you type ping space and then the leader node container IP, see, now it is pinging. So one host, another host, one container, another container, container to container, it is pinging and it is having communication. How? Because you have launched the entire service in an overlay network driver. So that is the concept of this exercise, guys. So in the next video, we will talk about a little bit of Docker volume, then we will jump straight away into Kubernetes. Yeah. So thank you so much, guys, for watching.